I am Per Bode. I am Harald Bode's youngest son. Ralph Bode, my brother, 11 years older than I, went on to become a renowned cinematographer of narrative films in New York and in Hollywood. He was the cinematographer for such films as Saturday Night Fever, The Accused, Dressed to Kill, Coal Miner's Daughter, and probably 60 other films. I went in a different direction and was involved with the Experimental Television Center in Binghamton and in Owego, where we had a visiting artist program, and we also had an engineer group that built video synthesizers. And so the Pike Abe synthesizer was further developed there. Namjoon and Shuya Abe were there. Don MacArthur, Dr. Don MacArthur, built some of the very early analog to digital circuits and systems. David Jones built a huge array of video synthesizers. And in that setting, I had access to that studio, made work, and as a young artist, showed at MoMA and across New York State and internationally, and sort of many things happened from that. I also then taught at Alfred University in the art department for 32 years, and I co-founded and co-directed the Institute for Electronic Arts there. So that's just in terms of what happened to the sons. They did okay. My thought was to actually give you some of my perspective of my father's early history, and then also some information about how his work then was received and how it, in a sense, became kind of absorbed into the culture or into a larger dialogue. I guess I should add a little. That was my Ralph, myself. I actually want to say something about my mother, Irmgard, who was a remarkable, interesting person, incredible sense of humor. She was from Berlin. She met my father in a nightclub in Berlin. He called her on the telephone and asked if she would like to dance. I'm glad she said yes. She was also a great gardener and great cook. Her mother had been a cook in Berlin in 1918. She taught me to cook, which has helped my life immensely. Mutti taught me to cook. My father taught me mathematics. And just a quick, brief story, there was a moment, I might have been 12 or 13, and my father somehow thought I was ready for this moment, and he sat me down, and it was a session about mathematics. It might have been an hour long. It could have been 3 hours long. He just filled page after page with formulas and the breakdown and how this then made that happen, and this could go this way, and he did it in a way that was very comforting, and he kept repeating, he kept going back, and sort of, and therefore with this, then we could go to this stage, et cetera, et cetera. And he knew that I would not understand a lot of what it was that he was teaching me, but he also, I think he really understood my takeaway, which was he made me not be fearful of complexity, and that there were structures and systems that one could begin to identify and unpack and work. It actually was a very, very meaningful, to this day, meaningful lesson to me. On a sort of lighter note, my first car that I bought was a VW Bug. I had painted 2 houses as a teenager, 18 years old, and after the first day, I had a dented fender in the front left and a dented fender in the back right, and I wondered what Puppy would say and if he would be angry or what. And he wasn't angry at all. He just said, "Oh, I see you really need to learn how to drive this car. And you should understand you need to learn where the invisible fenders are. So if you've ever been in a VW Bug, you can't see the fender. It's invisible. You don't see it. You have to know. You have to extrapolate where it is. So kind of it gives you a little bit of a flavor of he as a person and his relationship to me. I'd like to jump historically back. My father grew up in a very musical home, musical culture. His mother he grew up in a home with a harpsichord and a piano. His mother was a harpsichordist and composer. His father played piano and was a piano teacher, and also played pipe organ in various churches in Hamburg. At somewhere around the age of 18, he had lost both of his parents. He was an orphan, and he was living with his great aunt in a cold water flat, had no money, pretty much, but was fortunate to actually be able to go to the university in Hamburg because his grades were very good, and he had free tuition. But he had to purchase his books. So he was a cigarette boy, selling cigarettes on the street. He was a very handsome young man. He also did ink and pen drawings. And he had always been interested he actually wanted to be an artist. But there was a depression that was there. And when he, in fact, had his degree in physics, there were no jobs to be had. In terms of his education, he studied physics, which was mathematics, and he also studied with Ernst Cassirer, the philosopher, who just a few years earlier had had the very famous debate with Heidegger in Switzerland. And there he learned, this is somewhat my projection, but I believe it's completely the case because I heard him so often talk about the importance of culture and technology to be in dialogue with each other, and that they weren't separate. They were just part of one larger thing. I know that he got it from there. And it's really an important part of understanding Harald Bode is that there really is a philosophical aspect about being a human being in the world in dealing with technology. And then there's a completely technical, mathematical aspect. And when you look at the notebooks, the pre-computer, of course, you see that there's so many projections of waveforms and et cetera that come from mathematical formulas. And he's crafting or sculpting waveforms. He's altering them. And one could make the case that one model actually is similar to the mouth, that our mouths and the cavity in our tongue, that we're filtering. We're constantly filtering this raspy construct that's coming out of our throat. And in many ways, he was, that's sort of the metaphor, but there's, I think that's in his thinking also. It wasn't some kind of cold idea about a waveform being manipulated. And he was interested in what the sound sounded like and the beauty of the sound. He would often say he was interested in the known and unknown sounds, and that's actually what he was exploring, was known and unknown sounds. This, I think, is interesting. This caught my attention. His early activities, and this has to do with the connection to media. And my proposition would be that my father is really one of the early media artists, electronic media artists in the century. He was part of a group that had a little room in the back of a movie theater. They had a projector, they had a piano. They did all kinds of multimedia events there. It was also used by the North German Film and Sound Club. And one of the first things that he did was to put sound pickups on the Steinway piano. And then he realized we don't need to have the piano. We actually, oscillators, that technology was, and he had learned some of that technology actually in Berlin. And he came up with a notion of a purely electronic organ. The prototype had doorbell buttons just to prove the concept. And he then attracted the attention of Christian Warnke, who was a band leader and who also had some means, and funded the project. And they built the Warbo electronic organ, the very first totally electronic organ without any wheels spinning. It wasn't mechanical, it was electronic. And where was it shown? Right, this is the culture part. Where does one show that? The first showing of the Warbo was in a movie theater. And then the second showing of the Warbo was in an artist's studio. So this connection where here you're inventing something new, you actually have to find a way for it to function in the culture, and you may actually institution-wise have to even come up with some other ways of doing it. He also then, and it was common in his practice, the recordings, or not recordings, the instruments that he made were used in movie scores, so there's the connection to the cinema. They were played on the radio, so here radio was new technology at that time. And if you jump forward to late 40s, the comment has been made about the mellochord. The mellochord that he designed with interaction and communication with Meyer Epler is the one that was then in the Cologne studio. Meyer Epler was the teacher of Stockhausen, right? That was part of, Stockhausen was studying, he was going to get a PhD, actually, with somebody who was looking at sound from the point of acoustics and graphs and charts. In any case, Harald was involved with that. In '54, when he came to the United States, he was involved with the SD Organ Company. They were going to build the Bode organ using American manufacturing techniques, which were about some kind of efficiency and simplifying, et cetera, et cetera. It was during that time that he built the Mod Synth, which was a modular audio synthesizer that's been credited by Bob Moog and Buchla and various people as the model for their own instruments. The other thing about all of this is that he did this, as Caspar Abacob would say, out of his own soil. These are all machines that he made in his apartment, in the houses that he rented. They were not connected to factories and corporations, although in a few cases they were, but the constant was the home studio. That's the home studio in North Tonawanda. My bedroom was right above there. I heard music my whole teenage life from there. Okay, now this is a little bit about collaborators and other people responding to his work. Well, actually, I missed an important one, which is the Columbia-Princeton Electronic Music Studio in New York, Vladimir Usichevsky. That, in a sense, was like the Cologne studio, but for America. It was the model for electronic music studios across the United States. There were probably 20 other electronic music studios based on the one at Columbia-Princeton. And Vladimir and my father worked very intensively, and this is very technically, in terms of refining the frequency shifter and the ring modulator. Vladimir's, there are many students that came from that, but Wendy Carlos, Walter Carlos, Wendy Carlos, very important person in composition, and Prill Smiley and Daria Samagan, who actually still teaches with Bode frequency shifters and ring modulators at Stony Brook University in New York. We're all involved with that project. Okay, I'm going to move a little bit quicker. Yep, yeah. 1970s, Dr. Tom Ray wrote a number of articles in Contemporary Keyboard magazine, and very significant. In 1987, my father passed away, and I received a call from Namjoon Paik. And I had met Namjoon a number of times at the Experimental Television Center, and he called me to tell me that Hamburg was having its 800th anniversary, and that I should consider sending the archive to Hamburg, because he was from Hamburg, he had studied in Hamburg, and they were looking for success stories, he said. And your father is a success story they would be very proud to have and be involved with. And then he said, and if you don't do that, it would be very German of you. And I said, oh, Namjoon, is that something very Korean to say? We laughed. In around 1990, Marianne Amache, electronic composer and installation environmental sound, called me on the phone just to tell me how much my father's work inspired and influenced her. And I knew her name. I felt really embarrassed. I didn't really know her work at the time, and I thanked her for calling. In 1998, Pauline Oliveros comes into the picture in my life. Andrew Deutsch, who was a student of hers, in a class, there was a question to Pauline, what inspired you, etc. And she said, one of my heroes is Harald Bode, which I just found out about this 2 weeks ago. Very interesting. And Pauline is very important American composer after John Cage. Like, where can you go after Cage, right? He took up all the oxygen. Well, Pauline was one of the people who really radicalized how to think about music and make music. In any case, Pauline, Andrew, and myself performed at Alfred University. I was on the Bode vocoder. Andrew played Harald Bode sound files, and Pauline played her expanded instrument, which was an accordion with pitch shifter and reverb, etc. And that was the beginning. And then after that, Pauline said, I think you, and Pauline had just created her band, the Deep Listening Band, and she said, I think you should create a band, and that band should be the way that you explore the Harald Bode archive, which is what we did. And we created the Carrier Band, and we have, I think, 7 or 8 CDs that we've produced. We've done about 26 performances, and Rebecca is on it as well in the group. Jump forward, George Steinmeier, who the Steinmeier family made pipe organs in Germany for 200 years. He was at the SD Organ Company. He decides there needs to be an exhibition of Harald Bode's work. Tom Ray is involved with it. 2009, Caspar Abacob comes to visit Rebecca and I in Hornell, New York. He's the first person to read the notebooks in German. And we give him many recordings. He then goes forward to create 2-hour-long feature radio documentaries. Couldn't get them on the radio. I contacted Peter Weibel and said, Peter, he's not able to get it on the radio. A month later, Caspar says, we've got it. I emailed Peter, did you have anything to do with it? He just wrote back, yes. There were 2 other major exhibitions that Rebecca organized of prints and sound that were very important exhibitions of Harald's work. So this is this thing of suddenly it being in an exhibition kind of construct. Rebecca also, and this was inspiration from Caspar, we realized that we had 8-track recordings that none of us had ever heard because you need an 8-track player, and I didn't have the player. So she found at Concordia University in Montreal, she found Kevin Austin did the transfers. She then was asked to be an editor for E-Contact Harald Bode, which became a very significant publication. Again, my point being sort of how things move into the culture. I'm almost done, I know. Then Caspar finds in 2012, or maybe 2018, he finds the mellochord that's at Bonn. That is the one that Meyer-Epler had. And I contact Peter Weibel, and I said, we found the mellochord. Well, within a few months, the mellochord was part of the 100 Masterworks exhibition here at ZKM that he and Siegfried Zielinski put together. In 2018, the archive comes here to ZKM, and here we are. Oh, and then this is important, last thing. 2024, last year, Dr. Tom Ray released a book. It's a 400-page book on the history of electronic music instruments in the 20th century. It's a very significant book. The 400-some page book that he self-published. There's some postcards out there if you're interested in seeing more about it. And a statement my father made at the end of a half-inch reel-to-reel documentary that was shot. He wrote, hopefully this is a short but comprehensive overview. Welcome to the Bode Witch Kitchen. Thank you.